continue the conversation now with two journalists who are covering the First Minister's meeting. Marieke Walsh is with the Globe and Mail. Mia Rabson is with the Canadian Press. Thank you to the two of you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Marieke, I'll begin with you. You know, we did speak to Premier Higgs tonight. He's disappointed with the dollar amount. You were tracking the news conference with the other premiers. What else was being said about the money being offered?
I think there was a resounding disappointment being expressed at the same time that there was a clear resignation to the fact that all of the premiers will end up accepting this offer because it appears to be Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's final offer, Michael. I think there's some questions for the federal government in terms of the expectation setting and the table setting that they did in advance of this meeting. It appeared that they would be offering, I think, more money from how they were talking, in particular because this is really actually in the near term just a repackaging of what they already promised in the last election campaign and not actually new money on top of that given the healthcare crisis that has developed.
Well, you know, Mia, there are side deals in this offer. And to Marieka's point, yes, the vast majority of money is a repackage. There's only about $46 billion in spending across a number of years. That's actually new. But there are side deals in this offer. And the government says that's to create greater flexibility for the provinces. Could those dollars address some of the concerns being expressed by the provinces tonight?
I mean, not really. The provinces want what is essentially an enormous amount of money. They wanted $28 billion up front immediately and then 5% more on the Canada Health Transfer every year after that. They're getting the 5%. They're not getting the $28 billion. Under their plan or their request, the Canada Health Transfer would go to more than $100 billion over at the end of this the decade of the deal. It's going to be close to about just like 72, 73 billion, I think it was the math that we did on that. So the numbers there tell you right away that there's a massive difference between what was asked and what was offered. And those side deals are worth $25 billion over that same period. So even if you add that $25 billion to the Canada Health Transfer increases they are getting, it comes nowhere close to what the provinces wanted. They wanted a lot more money up front and a lot more money every year for them for their basic healthcare needs, not for targeted funding. Mm-hmm. So it's money they'll use. They're happy about it in the sense that it's new money. As many of them said, they're not going to say no to new money, but it's nowhere close to what they wanted.
Mm-hmm. You know, Marieke, the Liberals right now, as you know, are behind the Conservatives in the popular polling that's out there. Does the Prime Minister risk a political hit if his solution to healthcare falls short of the mark? Because as you were noting earlier, it seems that this is the money that he's offering, not much room to budge. So does the Prime Minister risk dropping even lower in the polls?
I think it's a bit too soon to tell and to know where Canadians will assign blame. I mean, Jean Chrétien cut healthcare spending dramatically in his budgets in the 90s and still got reelected. So I think it's a bit too soon to say exactly how that plays out. But certainly in terms of electoral promises, we know that the Prime Minister, for example, in the last two elections, promised a doctor for every Canadian. And we know that's far short of what's actually happening right now. So the question is, will people hold him to account for those kinds of promises that are really in the provincial government's controls in terms of how they spend their money and where they invest it? Or will they be seen to be doing something? And so that's enough from the federal perspective. I think it's too soon to say. I think more importantly, we need to know from the Conservatives, will they actually honor this new offer that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is putting forward? Because it's a 10-year deal. And it would be hard to see that the same government would still be in power after 18 years. So it's likely that there would be a change in government at some point in the next 10 years. And that means there are also questions for how other parties will respond to it.
Well, it is interesting that we haven't really heard from Pierre Poilievre so much on the First Minister's meeting or even these healthcare talks. So certainly that's something we'll be tracking in the days ahead. But, you know, Mia, the Prime Minister keeps talking about protecting public health care. But in our conversation once again with Premier Higgs, he says that if this is the dollar amount offered, then really the provinces will have to rethink how health care can be delivered. So where does that leave, do you think, the public system when it comes to delivering health?
Well, there's two things there. I mean, the Prime Minister was clear in his, I think it was like the very last question he took today, that the Canada Health Act is still in existence. They will do everything to uphold it. And that the Canada Health Act protects the universal healthcare system. But on the other hand, I don't think there's anybody in the healthcare system or any government that doesn't think there has to be some kind of innovation to find a way to deliver the healthcare that we need more effectively and more efficiently. I mean, this is a lot of money on the table that is today. We're talking about, even if it's just looking at the new money that's being offered of $46 billion, it's not that's a lot of money. And if you look at the total amount, in healthcare funding will increase over 10 years. It's almost $200 billion. If we cannot find a way to deliver healthcare in this country without 3-4 times that amount of money, no private sector, no public sector amount of money is going to solve it. There has to be innovation. Potentially a fight brewing between the provinces and the federal government about some sort of allowances for more privatization, but very few governments in this country are going to talk about moving away from the universal payer system. It's just a very big risk politically in Canada.
Well, certainly something we'll be watching over the next few days. As we heard from Premier Stephenson, the premiers will be discussing the offer in the days ahead. So for now, Mia Rabson, Marieke Walsh, thank you very much for the time. Not as much as I wanted, but really appreciate your voices tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.